today we're going to look at Roog, and reason why is it's a card that used to be requested a while ago by, I think it was the King Hanj wanted to see Roog deck. So Roog has a couple of things. So originally, let's talk about what it is now. It's special card, neutral, 9 provisions, spawn Cataclysm on enemy row for 4 turns. It is a spell, which is relevant to Alzur, and yeah, you spawn Cataclysm. Cataclysm is the start of the owner's turn. Split 3 damage randomly between units in the row. So it puts Cataclysm out for 4 turns. Each turn, the opponent takes 3 random damage in that row. So you play it, they take 3 random damage. So it does 12 random damage over 4 turns. 12 random damage for 9 provisions is not amazing, if we're going to be nice. Yeah, it's not amazing, but this card used to be 10 provisions. And that was before its... That was after its rework. Its rework, originally it was a 12 provision card that spawned Cataclysm, just put the Cataclysm on the row for infinite duration, more or less, right? Until the round ended, there'd be Cataclysm on the row. That version of Cataclysm did 2 damage to the tallest unit, so it would do potentially 20 damage to the tallest unit over a 10, well, 18, because if you're playing it, you know, they're not going to put the unit in that row where the Cataclysm is right away. So probably 18 maximum damage you get out of this. Now the maximum damage is 12, but it's 9 provisions. Originally it was 18, provisions was 12, and I needed a long round. So they reworked it to try and make it more playable, I guess. Before we talk about issues with it, let's talk about what it has going for it, first of all. And there's a couple synergies which will come to mind, and these are going to be pretty familiar if you watch some of the other videos here. And they're going to be Skellige, more or less, and it's stuff like Dagger. So where's Dagger? We'll mention these briefly here. So, first of all, random damage can help set up the, damage units for either Junod, or if you're being really generous here, you could say it has synergy with the Onslaught Leader ability, giving you armor, although I have not seen anyone try that. And the other thing is it can help you with stuff like Greatsword. So, Greatsword, every unit takes damage, heals stuff by 1. Dagger's the same, but he boosts. So potentially you could say there's synergies there. I mean, there are synergies, and it could also set up the Bloodthirst. So random damage isn't the best for setting up Bloodthirst, but it does spread out across multiple units. So I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's decent, right? Because the issue with random damage is you could hit the wrong things, but if it's spread out across a couple units, maybe you'll probably get some Bloodthirst set up. And it's very fitting that it has synergies with Skellige, because we have good old Heimdall right here. We'll get to Heimdall in a minute. But yeah, Heimdall, we call the sound of battle, and we'll have Roog. Good old Roog. So those are some synergies. I did mention Alzur as a 9 provision spell. We take a look at the spells here. As a 9 provision spell, right, there's only 2. There's Curse of Corruption and Roog. Roog, you could play it with Alzur. Potentially, but like Alzur usually doesn't get to go off with his combo if you're playing Orb of Insight combos. Otherwise, he usually dies, but you could try and set something up with him. I don't think Roog is great synergy, because you usually do that as some kind of big opening play to really force a lot of tempo, or as a finisher, and Roog doesn't fit those very well. Sometimes you play it in the middle of a round, but usually you want to use it like either right away to force a lot of response from the opponent as a really high tempo play, or you play at the end of a round as like a finisher type thing. So Roog doesn't fit super well there, because it does take those 4 turns for that Cataclysm damage to go off, and since that's Orb of Insights almost exclusively for Alzur, the Roog doesn't have a lot of synergies with these Squirtle cards, so that's a bit unfortunate. So that's not the greatest synergy. Another thing is 9 provision units. If you're getting a random 9 provision unit, this is just, I'm not going to go over all these, but if you just look here, like there's some decent ones. We don't need just neutral, but like 9 provision units have the defenders in them, which is interesting, but like 9 provision units aren't too bad to spawn, because most of them are worth at least 6 points. Well, it's a good number, they're worth at least 6 points. So like that's possible. It might be fun, but I don't think it's the best use of a spot in your deck, more or less. So the issue with Roog is it takes 4 turns, and the ceiling's not too high. So the 4-turn thing we kind of mentioned when we talked about Alzur. Like, if it takes 4 turns for it to do anything, well, to get its full value, it doesn't fit a lot of synergies. And the other thing here, by the way, this artwork is fantastic, which is kind of why it's sad the card's not great. But yeah, 4 turns isn't great, and the other thing is its ceiling is 12 points for a 9 provision card that takes 4 turns to go off. That's not great. Like, I feel like it should either have a bit longer duration or just like full round duration, honestly, or it should just cost less. It's one of those two, right? The other thing is you could improve Cataclysm, but we'll talk about changes to the card later. There's one thing I want to compare it to before we do that. Because when I say that it takes 4 turns to go off, there's something else that takes 4 turns to go off. And I want to compare the power of these effects for a minute here. Or Siri. So Siri Dash has timer 4, draw a card. Ragnarok takes 4 turns for its full value. Siri Dash needs 4 turns. Ragnarok does get the value in between, right? But you get 5 points from Siri. So after 2 turns of Ragnarok, it's not as much value as Siri Dash has. And the full 4 duration goes off. Then Siri Dash draws you a card. We compare that to doing, say, just 2 extra turns of the Cataclysm here. Because basically we're going to say 2 turns of Cataclysm gives you these 5 points approximately. There's 2 more turns. I think it's the only timer 4 in the game, which is why we're comparing it here. It's 4 turns is a long time for something to go off. Obviously, Cataclysm is incremental value, but you got points from Siri Dash. Drawing a card is way, way better than getting 6 more random damage. So, it's like comparing it to stuff like Siri. It seems like this should have a better effect. So, we've mentioned Alzur's Synergy. We've mentioned Synergies with the Skellige cards. There is another synergy we want to mention, and that is going to be Vader Maker. And where is he? There he is. So Vader Maker can increase the Cataclysm row duration, and if you control Scepter of Storms, you can increase it by 3 instead, which makes it quite a bit longer, which makes Ragnarok, Ragnarok's fine. With that, if you extend it by 3, then the Ragnarok lasts most of the round, but then you're going to need Scepter of Storms, you're going to need Vader Maker, you need Ragnarok out. And honestly, if you're playing a row extension like this, why not just do Fulmar and Ryogan Rain, right? The Cataclysm doesn't quite cut it in there. One more thing we do want to mention. Type in a row effect here. I think that's the... No, what's the keyword for Ancient Foglet? It is row effect. So, it does boost Ancient Foglet by 4. That being said, so does Red Riders, and Ardgate boosted by 6, and you've got Leaders and Frost and such, so it's probably not worth it, but it's worth mentioning here. It's also worth mentioning you can get off of the, which one is it? The random row effect here. I believe Cataclysm is one of the effects you can get. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see this a lot, so it's kind of hard to say. But I think you can get all of them, because you can get Dragon's Dream off of it, so I think you get Cataclysm. So, it does have that synergy with Ancient Foglet, although I'm pretty sure if you're playing a Frost deck, you're not going to be running Cataclysm. And the last card I want to mention before we get into things I'd like to change about it and such like that is, where is Madoka? So, let's type in his name for a second. The reason we're talking about Madoka is pretty obvious, because he spawns Cataclysm with his order. So whenever you play a bomb, summon this from your deck, graveyard to random allied row, order, spawn Cataclysm for 1 turn, and destroy self. So, Madoka gives you Cataclysm. If you play 4 bombs, it gives you the full value of Ragnarok. And that's sort of not a great comparison for Cataclysm. Obviously they work pretty differently. You need the bombs for Madoka. He only gives you the 1 turn of Cataclysm. You have to make sure you get graveyard banished or locked or something. Or seized, but that being said, it's pretty easy for Madoka to spawn 4 turns of Cataclysm, which is the same value as Ragnarok. When you compare it to that, he also has the upside of being 3 points, he has the upside of coming out of your deck when you play a bomb. He's got so many upsides. You can get more than 4 turns, you can get 8 turns if you're running a lot of bombs. So it just makes Ragnarok look pretty weak by comparison. So those are kind of the things with Ragnarok. It's got a couple synergies, it's got some issues. So what would I like to see the card? What do I want to see changed with it? All that good stuff. Well, there's one thing to mention here that I want to mention first. There's 2 things in my mind. One is go back to the original effect of having it last for the whole round. That's one thing, right? Hey, look at the cards in the game right now. Is that too strong? Is it? I mean, You could just make it back to 10 provisions, or even 11 if you want to do that, but like, I'm pretty sure that... Here's the thing. Ragnarok, in my opinion, like, I played for a long time when the game first came out, and for, was it, like 2.5 years, it had the effect where it stayed on the field for the full row. They're on the row for the full round. And I kind of liked that. It may give it a feeling that Ragnarok was here, and it was just going to end. It was just going to keep going until the game ended. Now, Ragnarok being temporary for only 4 turns, I don't really like. Now, that might just be personal preference, but I really would prefer if this lasted longer than 4 turns. Because you can either, there's 2 things you can do in my mind. You can either make it last longer or make the effect stronger. So if you make it last longer, you can play early round 3, get a whole bunch of value from it, and that might be pretty cool. Other thing is you can make the value higher, so potentially Cataclysm does more damage, but you can't do that because it has the shared effect with Madoka. We don't want to buff Madoka, so that's kind of an issue here. Is when they gave them the shared effect, the shared road effect, it kind of messed up a lot of this, because we can't really change Cataclysm without buffing Madoka. Madoka's a card you don't really want to see buffed. At least I don't want to see buffed. If you buff Madoka a little bit, it becomes incredibly oppressive, so we don't really want to do that. So we can't really change the Cataclysm, which means we can either change the effects some other way. So either it spawns something when you play the Cataclysm, potentially, like it gives you a little token guy, a warrior of some type, or you make it longer. I think making it longer is probably the easiest thing to do, which I'd really like to see. And there is another thing I want to mention here, and that's Heimdall. So, obviously, lore-wise, these two go together. So why don't they? Here's the other thing. This is not a Heimdall video, so I'll be pretty quick here about how I really dislike this ability on Heimdall. It's fine, but whatever. Why don't we just have... Like, okay, this probably isn't the best idea for the game, but I think it might be neat if Heimdall had an interaction with Ragnarok. Either 2 ways. We can either have Heimdall make Cataclysm instead of this 1 damage to random enemy units in a row, which multiple number of units in a row, which is kind of a weird way to word it anyway. But if we just played like Cataclysm for 3 turns or 2 turns or something, why don't we just do that? I mean, Cataclysm's in the game for a reason. It has synergy with Ragnarok. Well, Ragnarok is supposed to be with Heimdall. It makes Cataclysm. Sure, you could do that, which is one thing I'd like to see. The other thing is, you could just make Heimdall and Ragnarok have a synergy. This card, other cards like Vader Maker and Scepter of Storms that have a synergy if you have them both, right? So, Vader Maker does his 1 turn extension. If you have Scepter of Storms, it does more, obviously. So, why not have Heimdall maybe have an interaction with the Ragnarok, because he has basically no place in the game right now. Like, you don't see Heimdall. If you're playing a warrior deck, you have plenty of other options that are much better than Heimdall for these provisions, and you don't see him played. So I'd like to see him some kind of synergy with the Ragnarok. So one idea, maybe if you have Heimdall out, the Ragnarok affects both rows. Why not? Something like that. Would that be too strong? I mean, you could balance the provisions. I don't think that'd be too strong. Look at the cards they added. Like, Heimdall's a 12 provision card. You know what else is a 12 provision card? This is funny, by the way. I didn't actually craft these yet because I haven't gotten around to playing any of the new decks, seeing as I just got back. But Triss Meteor Shower is a 12 provision card, and so is Yennefer Illusionist. And these are both very, very strong effects. So would it be too crazy to say we just Heimdall just have Ragnarok affect both rows or something? I don't really think so. But I would like to see some kind of synergy between those two, or just see the Ragnarok longer. Yeah, that's kind of what I think. You could also go back to the original idea of where we split the Cataclysm from Madoka's row effect. But I think they combine them together for a reason, so I don't think they're going to do that. What do you guys think? Should we change Ragnarok? Do you like Ragnarok? I really like Ragnarok. It's got a fantastic artwork on it, which is probably one of the reasons why King Hanj kept requesting it. But how would you like to see this card changed? Do you want to see it changed? And what card should we look at next time? That'll be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And you can check out some more videos over here. And thanks for watching.